Hey, it's your guy Tyrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze how Martin Odegaard played a key role in Arsenal's 3-0 win over Southampton. So in today's video, first we're going to focus on Southampton's pressing, then we'll briefly shift to Arsenal's wide play, specifically down the left-hand side, and lastly we'll focus on Odegaard's impact. So when we break down the game and we do look at the board, we have Arsenal in a 4-4-1-1 and Southampton in a 4-4-2. Basically, the main difference here in terms of their shape was that Odegaard was slightly in behind Lacazette, while Armstrong and Broja did operate as a strike partnership. So first we'll focus on Southampton's pressing, and what we did see from them was as expected. They dropped off into two banks of four, but when they looked to press, there were various ways in how they could do it. They could have Armstrong and Broja stepping in towards the center backs, Redmond and Tella blocking off the passing lanes in towards Tomiyasu and Tierney, and then Ward-Prowse and Diallo closing down Xhaka and Thomas Partey. If they didn't want to press with the two strikers closing down Gabriel and White, they could have both sitting in between Xhaka or Thomas Partey dropping off a bit deeper. And then if one wanted to step towards Gabriel, the other would close down Thomas Partey. And if the ball was shifted out to White, they'd step to White and block off the passing lane into Thomas Partey. The other alternative for them was to have Armstrong and Broja stepping towards Gabriel and the goalkeeper if Ramsdale did get on the ball. And from there, you would need a wide player, whether it be Tella stepping to White, or on the opposite flank, you'd end up seeing Redmond stepping towards Gabriel. That would end up seeing one of the fullbacks being left free. That's where you need Livramento to step towards Tierney, or on the opposite flank, it'd be Walker-Peters stepping towards Tomiyasu, and then having the free center back shift over. So as you can see, there are various ways that they could go about their press, and the final way would be to have Armstrong and Broja dropping off Xhaka and Thomas Partey, and allowing Gabriel and White time on the ball, and then they could apply pressure and block off the passing lane into the Arsenal midfield duo. Ultimately, we witnessed an identical press from Arsenal, but they were much more well drilled, as you had Lacazette and Odegaard doing a very good job of stepping towards Stevens and Bednarek, and Odegaard in particular stepping towards Bednarek but blocking off the passing lane into either Ward-Prowse or Diallo. There were also times where you ended up seeing Ward-Prowse dropping into an inside left position, and you'd end up having one of the Arsenal's forwards stepping towards him, and then having the free player stepping towards Diallo. Ultimately, if Lacazette and Odegaard weren't dropping off on Diallo and Ward-Prowse, and they weren't taking turns pressing the center backs and sitting on one of the deeper midfielders or stepping towards the center back and blocking off the passing lane, we ended up seeing Odegaard and Lacazette close down the center backs, and Thomas Partey and Xhaka were eager to step forward to apply pressure towards Ward-Prowse and Diallo in Southampton's third. However, what we ended up seeing from Southampton here was, although their pressing was logical on paper, they were unable to sustain it due to Odegaard's movement. He was often dropping off into that gap between Diallo and Tella to get on the ball. But more importantly, what ended up happening was that when Tella was looking to push out to Tomiyasu, Odegaard was simply dropping off into his own half, into that gap between the forward and Tella, or simply shifting to the outside of Tella to receive possession. The reason why he was able to do that was because none of the center backs were stepping towards him, and oddly enough, Hasenhüttl wasn't encouraging Diallo or Ward-Prowse to track his movement. There were even occasions where you had Odegaard near Diallo, but Diallo was more focused on stepping towards Thomas Partey, and Odegaard was often always free as the spare man to help Arsenal bypass that front press. If you have one of the forwards stepping towards White or Gabriel, then the free center forward can drop off into that midfield zone to deal with Thomas Partey or Xhaka, and then you could have one of the spare midfielders tracking the movement of Odegaard. For example, on this board, you could see that Armstrong and Broja are ahead of Gabriel and White. For instance, if you have Broja stepping towards White, Armstrong could drop off towards Thomas Partey, and then if Odegaard is dropping off into that midfield zone, Diallo can step towards him. And if the front two were incapable of carrying out those duties, then you'd simply need one of the center backs to track the movement of Odegaard into that zone and man mark him. And if not, then Odegaard would be able to consistently serve as a free outlet to bypass that press. So in the build-up to Arsenal's opener, you have Broja ahead of Ramsdale, and you witness Armstrong in between Thomas Partey and Gabriel, meaning that Ben White is free. When Ramsdale slides the ball out to White, it pulls out Tella, and that now leaves Thomas Partey free as you have both Southampton strikers pulled out of the game, and that's going to pull out Diallo to apply pressure. When White slides the ball to Thomas Partey, you see that Diallo is stepping towards him, but he doesn't get tight quickly enough. And that allows Thomas Partey to slide the ball to the open man in Tomiyasu, which should be pulling out Walker Peters. However, what's important here is Odegaard's movement as he drops off into his own third freely to get on the ball. And Tomiyasu easily slides the ball across the Southampton left back for Odegaard, who pulls away Diallo and Walker Peters. And now Odegaard simply has to slide the ball across the left back for Tomiyasu continuing his movement and focus on Lacazette. As Tomiyasu carries the ball into Southampton's third, Lacazette's making a free run in the halfway circle to run at the center backs, and Tomiyasu could easily slide the ball out to Saka to run at a center back. Here you see Southampton's press again with Diallo, Tella, and Armstrong stepping towards White, Thomas Partey, and Tomiyasu. And once again, it's Odegaard dropping off into the channel to get on the ball. Tomiyasu slides the ball across Tella into the path of Odegaard. And what saves Southampton here is that Walker Peters steps initially to Odegaard when he has that first touch. And that ultimately forces him back. And now you could see that he's closed in by Tella and Walker Peters. And fortunately for Arteta, Odegaard's ball retention is very good. So he's able to hold off the pressure. But Walker Peters' initial pressure forces him backwards. And then lastly, you could see the Southampton front two closing down Ramsdale and White and blocking off the passing lane into Thomas Partey. But focus on Odegaard as Tomiyasu's calling for the ball. Tella shifts out to Tomiyasu. And you could see that Odegaard's now looking to make the run across Tella into the channel as Diallo's focused on stepping to Thomas Partey when he should be tracking the movement of Odegaard. Odegaard receives the ball freely, and as you could see here, now he has space to turn as neither Tella or Diallo were able to cut out the passing lane in towards him. However, as Odegaard carries the ball forward, he plays a loose pass and it hits off Diallo to help Southampton break once again. In terms of Arsenal's attacking shape, it was 3-2-5 as expected, but we did see some of the slight modifications that needs to be witnessed on a consistent basis. Over on that right-hand side, we did see Saka continuously running at Walker Peters with Tella looking to drop back deeper to provide cover, and that was a consistent theme, but he did a very good job of dragging markers towards him and then dropping off the ball to teammates in attacking positions. Over on the right-hand side, it's Saka in a 1v2 against Walker Peters and Elyounoussi, and there you could see Odegaard making an unmarked run towards the penalty area. Saka does a very good job of dragging both towards the ball, and then he's able to pull the ball back to Odegaard, and you could see that 4 Southampton players are taken out of the game. However, what they do well here is that you have Ward-Prowse and Diallo instantly stepping towards Odegaard. You could see that Arsenal have 4 attacking players in the penalty area, but Odegaard from there ends up firing an effort over the net. That was expected down that right-hand side, but what was more important was the variety out on the left-hand side. In Arsenal's most recent loss against Everton, we consistently witnessed Martinelli drifting into central zones, into the gap between the right back and the center back, or in between the center backs if Lacazette was dropping off deeper into the midfield area. And that would encourage Tierney to bomb forward to attack the opposing side's right back as Xhaka dropped off into an inside left position for cover. This became a reoccurring theme and Tierney struggled to win his 1v1 duel. And what we simply wanted was some variety in their movement down that left-hand side. What we ended up seeing here was that there were times where Martinelli was shifting out towards the touchline to get into 1v1s with Livramento, and that would force Tierney narrow, and what we ended up seeing was that he was making underlapping runs to pull away the wide player or Ward-Prowse, and that would create space for Martinelli to cut onto his right foot to either get a shot on goal or look to place one of his teammates in a legitimate goal-scoring position. This provides unpredictability for Arsenal's left-hand side, and along with that movement, Martinelli persisted with driving into central positions, into those gaps between the center back and the right back, or between the center backs, so that Tierney can run at Livramento, but it was key that we did end up seeing Martinelli vary his movement down that flank. If we shift to the left-hand side, you have Martinelli in a 1v1, but focus on Tierney's underlapping run to pull away a Southampton wide attacking player. That creates space space for Martinelli to cut onto his right foot in left half space, and you can see that Xhaka is approaching the penalty area unmarked. Ward-Prowse anticipates a pass back, and when Martinelli plays the ball in towards Xhaka, although he creates space, he forces Xhaka to rush his shot and he fires a first-time effort over the net. And in the build-up to Arsenal's second goal, you have Tierney sliding the ball out to Martinelli, and Ward-Prowse having to shift over because neither Redmond or Teller are occupying that zone. When Martinelli receives the ball on the touchline, this is where you see Tierney making an underlapping run to drag away Ward-Prowse, and that creates space for Martinelli to cut in central. As that play develops, you could see that Martinelli has dragged away 3 Southampton players towards the ball, and now he's looking to square the ball out to Tomiyasu in an inside right position, and that's all down to Tierney's movement. Seconds later, now you have Saka in a 1v2 dragging away Tella and Walker-Peters, and from there you could see Odegaard dragging Diallo into the penalty area as well, so that takes away 3 Southampton players, and now Saka could pull the ball back to Tomiyasu, and from there Tomiyasu witnesses the overload on that left-hand side as Lacazette's occupying Livramento, and then the ball could fall towards Tierney, and that results in the build-up to Arsenal's second goal. So as stated initially, what we ended up seeing from Odegaard that was integral to Arsenal's success in the early stages was his ability to shift out into that gap between Tella and Diallo, which is Southampton's left-sided attacking player and their left-sided central midfielder, and he drop off into that gap to receive the ball and look to shift it out in towards Tomiyasu, or freely turn forward to retain possession, or he was looking to make runs off that left-sided attacking player into space between the lines. So if he wasn't dropping off deeper into that gap to link play and help bypass that press, he was a few yards higher up the pitch into that pocket of space, and he was looking to receive the ball in that gap, as you'd end up seeing Lacazette often dropping off deeper in between Ward-Prowse and Diallo. In the early stages of that game, Odegaard was receiving the ball freely between the lines, as neither Ward-Prowse or Diallo were focused on his movement as they were looking to close down Xhaka and Thomas Partey, and none of the center backs were willing to step forward to get tight towards him on a consistent basis. In this example, you could see Xhaka ahead of Ward-Prowse and Livramento. You have Saka occupying Stevens and Odegaard between the lines. Xhaka is able to bypass both Ward-Prowse and Diallo, and that pulls out Bednarek, and that's where you see Lacazette in that midfield zone free in that deeper position. What Odegaard does well here is he pulls out Bednarek, and he ends up laying off the ball into the path to Lacazette, and you can see that his run isn't being tracked tightly, and that allows Lacazette to carry the ball towards the edge of the box where he should be taking a shot on goal. However, unfortunately for Arsenal, he takes an additional touch, and that allows Walker-Peters to slide in to halt the Arsenal attack. Following a Xhaka interception, you could see that Odegaard's receiving the ball ahead of the center backs and Saka already making a run off Walker-Peters. What Odegaard does well here is that he drags Bednarek towards the ball, and because Bednarek doesn't get tight, he looks to backheel the ball across the center back who's caught out of position for Saka already making the run off Walker-Peters not tracking, and that places Saka free into right half space, and look at Stevens' positioning as he can't get across to stop Saka in time. That results in Saka carrying the ball towards the 6-yard box, but unfortunately his effort is denied. So there were several occasions in that game where Odegaard was receiving the ball in that pocket of space on that left-hand side, or he was receiving it in central positions, but unfortunately for Arsenal, his final pass let him down, and there were several unsuccessful passes into teammates looking to break in behind. And he also did a very good job of dropping off deeper to help out his teammates apply pressure when Southampton were looking to break in towards Arsenal's third, and he helped the Gunners win possession on several occasions. So as you could see, Southampton's inability to cope with Odegaard's positioning between the lines and into wide areas to bypass their press resulted in a comfortable 3 points for Arteta's men.